week we will review week 2 along with several players that we were each wanting to discuss. All that coming up next. Just to preface this, I was having a little bit of connection issue earlier, so hopefully I don't get booted. If I do, I'm sure JT will end up taking over. But week 2 in review. Let's go and jump into this, guys. Starting with the big game of the week, Texas and Alabama. What were you guys' thoughts? JT, go and start us off, buddy.
Yeah, I was. I had taken Texas in this game. I kind of was leaning towards them. I just thought yours was going to be, the difference maker, and Texas came out and played. They showed that they're for real this year. It was a real impressive win for them. I mean, obviously Bama has talent, but they're a team in a little bit of transition here with the QB and all this other things going on there. But I liked what I saw at yours. I like what I saw out of Texas. I think. I think they're going to be for real this year. I think they showed it.
I agree. My dad and I were talking about this game last week, and I was kind of going over. We were talking about who our potential college football playoff teams were, and I had mentioned Texas to him because I said if they get past Alabama, I don't think they're going to lose. I just don't see anybody else who's going to beat them. Obviously, their next biggest game is Oklahoma. Outside of that, I don't think they really play much. So if they run the table, then they stand a really good shot. Quinn Ewers, though, really solidified himself as the QB2 in my eyes in this draft class. Drake May hasn't looked impressive. He hasn't really looked impressive since a couple games before the end of last season. And he hasn't really started off on the best footing this season either. Quinn Ewers, though, I've been saying that he looked great against Alabama prior to the injury last year, and then a healthy Quinn Ewers, you're seeing him now, just tearing it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were mentioning it before, that Texas has the opportunity to win him, go in there to Tuscaloosa and beating him. And you were a huge Quinn Ewers fan prior to this game, just talking about that he wasn't healthy, towards the end of last year, and that's why we haven't seen him. But he has the potential to take over. And then if Caleb stays, he can easily become that one. But I think he was phenomenal, almost like a Mortal Kombat, that flawless victory kind of deal. But he looked great. But a big thing was, as I talked about last time, was Kool-Aid McKinstry versus Xavier Worthy. I think Adonai Mitchell and Jatavian Sanders really stepped up. Both of them had big games. I believe Sanders had over 100 yards, and then Adonai had 2 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy still had his 1 touchdown, but you just love seeing that plethora of weapons. And the funny thing is, if we were having this conversation last year, it probably just would have been a Bijan story, right? But now we're seeing the receiving field open up, and we're seeing, wow, Quinn Ewers can manage this game and do some great things, getting the ball around. No one really just the clear cut one guy. He's feeding everybody, man. And you love to see that going back from Texas, back when Vince Young days is the biggest time I could think about, when they were just like this type of team that just was hungry and ready and wanted to prove themselves. And I think they did. That's a big win in Alabama.
Yeah. How about that touchdown throw from Ewers to Worthy also? That
beautiful.
It was gorgeous. I mean, just the drop back and then the toss from about the 50-yard line, just right into his hands.
It was a dime. I mean, that just goes to show what he's capable of. I mean, that was on the money, what you want.
Yep. Andy, what type of thoughts you got on this game?
I'll talk about Alabama since we talked a lot about Texas. I think Jalen Milroe, I think he throws a good deep ball, but everything else he needs to improve. He really struggles reading the defenses, and I think the Alabama running back room, I'm not really too excited about anyone there. I think the best one is Justice Hayes, and he won't get the run just because he's a freshman. So I think overall for Alabama, even with the receiving room, Isaiah Bond, I believe, only had one catch. I think only had 3 targets. No one really got involved. It just didn't really flow. And it all starts with the quarterback. He wasn't in rhythm. He wasn't in a good flow. Even when he was taking off to run, it was just more of, I just got to go because I can't find anything. It just feels like the game speed was too fast for him. And that's going to be a trouble, I think, for Alabama this year.
Yeah, I mentioned it in one of the articles I wrote recently about it was my hot takes of the season. I mentioned I think Alabama's going to lose 3 games. I don't think that's really too much of a hot take. I don't think that's really too far of a stretch to even say that. They don't have. I think that, like you're saying, I think that their running back room and their wide receiver rooms are too convoluted. They don't have a one guy who they can just ride, and then they don't have the quarterback play in order to be able to compete with teams like Texas. Like, I really doubt that they can hang with Texas A&M at this point. I know Texas A&M didn't necessarily look all that great against Miami, but A&M has some big time talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're gonna struggle with LSU. They're gonna struggle with Tennessee. They may even struggle with Ole Miss. I could easily see where they lose 3 games.
It's big. I mean, when you lose at home, that's just a huge blow in itself, right? That's a huge knockback, and Nick Saban's got to do a lot to just go to that team, say, step back, guys, let's take a breath. We took it. Now let's go win some more, But we talk about it all the time. The SEC is hard. You get one loss, it's hard to climb back up.
Yep, definitely is. All right, next game we got on the list here. Ole Miss visited Tulane this weekend. I thought a few guys looked pretty good. I thought Jackson Dart looked really, really good to start the game. That first touchdown drive that they had, they just marched down the field, and Jackson Dart looked really, really pure. They lost Trey Harris early on. He had a big first drive and then didn't play the rest of the game with a little bit of a knee injury. I think he's expected back this weekend, though. Quinshon Judkins was, Quinshon Judkins, just kind of the steady Eddie type of guy. And then I thought Kai Horton looked halfway decent filling in for Michael Pratt. I didn't think he looked terrible. He started off the game really hot. But I actually really like their wide receiver Jaquan Jackson. I think he's got some juice to him. Obviously, he's a C2C CFF play. He's not a Devy guy. But I actually like the way he played also.
I'll jump in here real quick. I was want to see Trey Harris. Sorry about that. There. So I was hoping to see him bounce back, see kind of what he'd do in this game. Started off well, 2 catches, 55 yards, a touchdown, had a big one, but then he got hurt, missed the whole second half. Going to be interesting to see, kind of how bad that injury is and how long it's going to keep him out, because, he just was really exciting in week 1, and I was excited to see him in this game, and then to see him go out, that just kind of hurt.
Yeah, but Wade filled in really, really well. He had a big game. He may be a guy that you're looking at as far as C2C waivers go. He's probably still out there also.
A big guy was a transfer from Ole Miss who was kind of silent in week 1 was Isaac Ukwu, the defensive end from James Madison. He's a former first-team Sun Belt All-American for them, and he just dominated. I mean, he had 6 tackles, 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack, and he just looked phenomenal off the edge. He looked explosive, exactly what they wanted when they saw him at James Madison. And having some kind of presence like that when your top quarterback and Michael Pratt's out, that can definitely hurt you, So I think Ole Miss's defense took control of that and understood it. Sorry about that. took control of that and understood what they were doing. And it's just a huge showcase and seeing, wow, this Ole Miss team is almost looking complete. Jackson Dart's playing good. They have a star running back in Quinshon Judkins. They have a nice defense now. There's someone to monitor as that sleeper team in the SEC.
Yeah, if they could ever get Zachary Franklin back, that would be a huge boost to their offense. I mean, imagine him and Trey Harris and Wade and Hudson and all those guys running around, and then Michael Trigg, and if Prescore never comes back, they could have a really good team.
Yeah, with this game, I thought it really took a hit once Michael Pratt was out. But is anyone concerned about Quinshon Judkins? I mean, he hasn't really looked the same, I would say. I mean, he's never the most explosive one. He's always more volume dependent. But this season, when I'm just watching the games and watching him play, I don't know if it's more of teams are loading up the box trying to make Jackson Dart beat them. But when I'm watching Quinshon Judkins, I'm like, there's something missing there.
I think with him last year, they had the threat of Jackson Dart taking off and running. I haven't seen him do much of that yet so far. So teams are like you said, they're loading up the box. They're really keying in on Judkins. I think that's going to soften up a little bit the more that the wide receivers gain a little bit more respect.
And with him, I mean, last week, I was like, man, he's very comparable to me, this RB2 of the 2024 or 25 class, excuse me. But Nick Singleton's running away with that. Talk about Penn State. He's clear and cut the RB1. Quinshon, he definitely showed, with his 31 yards receiving, that he still can get that ball. I think we're just seeing a different form. Where last year I felt it was more of a run first kind of team, where now it's like, okay, let's open up Jackson and show off his QB skills as well.
Right. Oh, well, all right. Well, let's move on to Texas A&M and Miami. This was actually a very entertaining game for the most part. Tyler Van Dyke had a great showing. He was finding his receivers. He was delivering nice, accurate balls to them, and which is actually saying a lot because they didn't get a whole lot out of their running game on Saturday. It was mainly Tyler Van Dyke carving up the A&M defense. JT, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Van Dyke is just a kind of perplexing guy. He just, sometimes he looks really good, and you see games like he did against A&M, and you're like, man, this guy, he's got something. And then you watch him other weeks, and he looks terrible. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like you can see the talent is there. But it's like, can he ever put it together on a regular basis? That's going to be the question is can he put like a whole season together where NFL teams will actually have confidence in him that he can do it? That's the question for me. I'm not sure exactly how strong A&M's defense is going to be most of this year. So, I mean, it was a nice win for Miami. I thought he looked good. The offense for A&M looked better than their defense did. That's for sure. Obviously, Evan Stewart looked like the number one guy that most people think he is, 11 for 142. He was a beast. We haven't really seen much of the running game. Reuben Owens only got 2 carries, so they're still kind of trying to figure out how they want to use him. And then I think, Wegman is kind of the same as Van Dyke. He's just a guy that some weeks you look at him, he makes certain throws, and you're like, man, this guy has got something. And then you look over another time, and you're like, what is he doing? What was that pass? And those guys are very, I'm very confused on where to rank those guys. Like sometimes, like I said, sometimes I look at him, I'm like, man, I love this guy. And other times I'm like, this guy can't even get drafted. So there are 2 guys I think are going to see a lot of adjustment over the next year, up and down.
I do think Wigman is a lot better than what Cade Klubnik is, though. Klubnik had that one interception on Saturday. That was like, what was that? I mean, he just, that was when I kind of texted the group and I was like, I'm totally out on Klubnik now.
No,
what about USC? What do you got this on? What do you got on this A&M Miami game?
each week, I mean, last week I was talking about, man, Connor Wyman. He looks great. He's phenomenal. He's moving up my boards. And this week, it kind of brought me back down to earth, right? It just showed, all right, he still is that young quarterback. He's still going to make some mistakes, 2 interceptions, everything. And now, going off of what JT's saying, it's the Spider-Man effect, because now you're seeing the exact same thing I saw in Wyman last week in Tyler Van Dyke, right? He took it over. He took control. The running game wasn't going anywhere. Someone I was super high on, Mark Fletcher, the freshman running back, looked horrible. 4 carries, 6 yards. Like you never want to see that in a running back. So a lot of back and forth. The only constant here is Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart's a phenomenal wide receiver. He's making the plays happen. Everything else seems like it's a week-to-week basis, and hopefully they have more better weeks, just because that's gonna necessarily help their draft stock. But there's just some hard things to happen. It was a nice game from Van Dyke, but I don't think that's necessarily who he is. I don't think he's going out every game throwing 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I think he just knew what he needed to do. The wide receivers were on his side. They saw the running game was failing, and they just said, hey, okay, you know what? We got to take it in the air. And they did that, and they destroyed A&M.
Mm-hmm. Jump on
Yeah, with this skip, I absolutely loved what Evan Stewart did. He's been my wide receiver 2 since January. And he just keeps showing out. It doesn't matter what kind of coverage. It doesn't matter if they shade an extra safety over there. He's still going to get his. I think he is going to be the guy for the 25 class. As far as Kobe Young, I thought he played pretty well as well. He had 6 catches, 75 yards, got a touchdown. And then I thought that the running back room for Texas A&M, that's a little intriguing what they're doing right now. It looks like they're giving it to Daniels. He had 16 carries. So it looks like they're going with him. With Ruben Owens, I thought they would kind of get him more involved, but I don't know if it's because it was just the second game and they just didn't want to throw him in there, but that was a little interesting.
Yeah, I've been kind of worried with A&M's backfield over the last several seasons. They've had A-Chain there, but they had a big time recruit with LJ Johnson, did nothing with him. Le'Veon Moss came in last year, did nothing with him. Now Ruben Owens has come in, they haven't done anything with him either. It's been Amari Daniels taking over that backfield. He's looked okay. He hasn't been bad. But I do kind of worry what A&M does with these supposedly big time running back recruits. They don't seem to do a whole lot with them. They don't seem to develop them very, very well. All right. Well, let's go and head on to our next game. Matter of fact, we have a question about it here. Nebraska and Colorado. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go and pop this question up on the screen. It's our good buddy Bob here. Says, is Shedeur Sanders for real? Can he be a first round pick next year? Is he this year's Anthony Richardson? It's kind of a loaded question there. Yes, Shedeur Sanders is for real. He has not played good defenses during the first 2 weeks, and he won't until they face USC or until they face Oregon here coming up in the next couple weeks.
23rd.
Yeah, this week they got Colorado State, so you're probably going to see him pick them apart again. Can he be a first round pick next year? Yes, he can be. Mel Kiper has actually listed him as his QB3 for the 2024 draft class. Take that with a grain of salt. It is Mel Kiper Jr. Is he this year's Anthony Richardson? No, he's not Anthony Richardson. He does not have that type of athletic profile. He does not have that type of arm, nor that type of size. They are 2 different types of quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders can move around, but he's not nearly as athletic as what Anthony Richardson is. He also wants to pop up another comment here. I don't know if I want to put it up here, but I will. He says, Tommy looks like a random extra spaceship coordinator in a Star Wars movie. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that.
least he chose Star Wars.
Yeah, at least it's Star Wars, not Star Trek, I guess. So
Great
there is
franchise.
that. Yeah, dummy.
Mhm.
All right.
Ye-
Comments about
I'll
this
jump in on
Colorado.
this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played very good defenses, that is for sure, but he's looked really good, and his stats have been phenomenal. So you can't fault a guy that he's playing bad defense, especially if he looks good against them. I mean, again, 73% completion, almost 400 yards passing. They got off to a slow start in the first half. I think I think they were a little too jazzed coming out for that game. They looked like they kind of wore themselves out pregame, but then the second half, they just piled it on, 393, 2 touchdowns. He just looks really good to me. Me and SC, we're all over. We're talking about this when I saw the Mel Kiper's QB3. I was like, we were talking it all offseason that he could make himself QB3 in this draft class and possibly QB1 in the next draft class as he stuck around. That's kind of what Mel Kiper said. That was the big thing floating around on X, which I was all over, of course, because I was like, he must be listening to us. Mel must be all over our podcast because that's exactly what me and SC said a couple months ago. So they're going to see a lot of bad defenses. They just are. And so you can't fault him just because the defenses are bad. So the key for him is in the big games when they do play, big-time teams, whether he continues to show out in those games, I think is going to be the difference maker for him. But I think he has every opportunity. I think he's more athletic than he's showing. He scored a lot of rushing touchdowns at Jackson State, but he is just kind of it feels like they're telling him not to run because he's kind of sitting back. I mean, you could see it. He's breaking tackles. He's making guys miss when he's running around in the backfield. I mean, he made that one play, Nebraska. It ended up being a drop touchdown, but he made like 4 guys miss. And like spun around, ended up throwing a dart in the end zone and ended up barely falling through the guy's arms. So it should have been a touchdown. I'm just going to stay on this train. I'm not getting off the Sanders train. I just think he's got a ton of talent. I think that offensive coordinator is putting him in the right situations. And I think if they just stay doing what they're doing, I think he moves up draft boards. I can't see him not being a first rounder at this point.
To me, he's more Bryce Young than he is Anthony Richardson as far as his athletic movements. He's going to elude people. He's kind of a wizard in the, kind of a wizard in the pocket, being able to move around, and get outside and escape. But I don't see him taking off and running 60 yards the way Anthony Richardson does.
Yeah, I feel they're totally different players in my mind. I don't think they're similar at all.
Right.
Completely different.
What do you got?
Y'all know me. I love Shedeur. Bob knew the answer to that question before he wrote it on there. He's definitely going to be a first-round talent. The curious thing would be, if Caleb goes, does he go? Or if Caleb stays, does he stay? Because it's kind of, if he leaves, he could be the QB1. If he stays, he could be the QB1 kind of deal. But give a shout out to his wide receivers. They're really showing up, but he's throwing it on the money. But Xavier Weaver's looking nice. You have Travis Hunter, who's looking nice, who had more defensive plays, it felt like, this time around. You have Jimmy Horn looking great. The running back, Dylan Edwards, he's not doing much. But, I definitely – and I think they know this. They definitely need to work on that offensive line, because if his offensive line just gets better, it's going to be contention for him to be that QB1, but he's just getting destroyed in the backfield too. He's having to scramble around. Nebraska had a linebacker, Nick Heinrich, who missed the season opener with the ACL injury. He was just coming back, but this guy had 2 sacks, of Nebraska's 8 sacks. They did get to him, and it wasn't because he didn't know what to do. It's just the pocket collapses and he's forced to just hug it up, so he doesn't make a turnover, doesn't make a fumble. So I do want to see better in the offensive line, but for Shedeur Sanders, yes, he's for real, man. I was a fan of him when I saw him at Jackson State, and the question is when he comes to the big boys, if you will, the big boys league, the Power 5, is he going to be able to do the same things he was doing? And yeah, he is, man. He really is that accurate. He really is precise. He really knows how to control the game. It was the post-game interview last week. Deion Sanders was like, that's Shedeur. He said something like, I think he's only lost 6 games in his entire life since playing football, and that's, it's like elementary almost. And it's just – Guy's a winner. He wants to do everything for his team. He wants to go out there and show out, and he takes things personally. That was their motto this week. He takes things personally, and he did, and he carved up Nebraska.
Yeah, he did. He's going to deal with being sacked the entire season, though. His two tackles, really big guys, but really, really slow. One of them 6'8", the other one's 6'10", and they don't move very well. So his protection is going to be pretty bad all season. And once he starts playing better defenses like Oregon, like USC, like Oregon State, and he's going to be running for his life, and we're really going to see what type of mettle he has then.
For sure.
What about you, Andy? What do you got?
Yeah, I still don't know what to think of him. Like I think I'm still the low guy on him. It's not because I don't think he's talented. I think he is talented. I just want to see him play against like Oregon State, a team that has an actual defense where they will kind of trick him and try to bait him into thinking someone's open, but they're not. And I want to see him respond that way. And so far, I haven't seen that with the teams that he's played. And it's not his fault. I just don't know where to rank him. In the off season, I had him ranked 16th, and I haven't moved him just because I don't know where or how high I should move him. So what I do know is that the run game still is non-existent, and that's going to hurt when it gets deeper into the Pac-12 schedule. And then once, they move on. So I think that's an issue that they have to consider. But I think to go with Nebraska, they're a mess. They are void of talent. Jeff Sims, he's lost. He is absolutely lost. And with Malachi Coleman, I know he was a late enrollee and he got hurt during fall camp and stuff, but they got to get him out there because in this NIL world, if Nebraska's not going to play him, someone will pay him to play him elsewhere. So if Matt Rule wants him to stick around and build on that recruiting class that they have coming in, he's got to start playing.
Well, and they also have to figure out a way to get the ball into Billy Kemp's hands a little bit more. You get him in space, and he's really dynamic. Problem is, Jeff Sims isn't good enough to get him the ball. He's not a good passer. Doesn't make good decisions. He's basically a wildcat quarterback out there. Yeah. And when you have no threat of being able to throw it, everybody's just going to load the box, and you have no shot.
They're gonna be 3-0 this next week, right? Going in after next week, and then going on to Andy, Oregon, USC, Arizona State. Then it gets fun. Then it's like, okay, let's see what they're about. And then they close out against Utah. So you're talking about, playing that top-ranked D. I mean, Utah, I think, is the best one in the conference, right? So close it out against them. I mean, they have a tough schedule. And the sad thing for Sedeur, where he's at right now, he has to win to be considered. I think even if they lose by 3 or something, then that's going to just drop him and everyone's going to be like, oh, well, he's not for real. He couldn't beat Oregon. He couldn't beat USC. But he could have phenomenal games, and then the defense just let it up. I mean, you're going against 2 top-tier quarterbacks in Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, So those will be games interesting to watch, not necessarily to see what Shedeur does, but see who loses it if they end up losing. Is it him or is it the defense?
Yeah, I mean, Colorado is a fun story right now. How fun are they going to be when they finish 7-5? Because likely that's probably what they're going to end up being. 7-5, possibly 8-4 if they could beat Oregon State. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Oregon State's run game. DJ Uiagalelei is not a very good quarterback, but I mean, he's still a threat to run the ball. He could still, make throws every now and then. And they got Damian Martinez. So can Colorado contain them? If they can, then they could possibly go 8-4. But they're probably looking more like a 7-5 team to me at the end of the season.
Martinez is nasty.
He is.
That boy is great. I love watching Oregon State right now just because of him.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. All right, we got one more game we're going to discuss, and then we'll move on to some players. We want to talk about Notre Dame and NC State. Sam Hartman looks good, but I'm telling you, the star of that team right now is Audric Estime. That guy should be shooting up not only draft boards, but people's Devy rankings also. He's got good size. He's got good vision. He's got good enough speed to be able to outrun people. I mean, he had that long 80-yard touchdown run the other day that, he hit the afterburners and, was gone, made a couple moves, got to the outside and then cut back towards the middle and was gone. I think he's a legit NFL running back. What do you got to say about this game, JT?
Yeah, I mean, I've liked what Hartman's shown so far. I mean, I'm not sure how much what he's shown has helped his Devy or NFL chances. But he's doing everything that he's been asked to do. He's playing well. He's throwing touchdowns. Now, again, they haven't played very good teams. NC State, I think when we look back at the end of the year, we're going to be like, man, this team was a lot worse than we thought they were going to be. They're just not a very good team at all. So I've liked Notre Dame. It was a good start again, but they're going to be one of those teams, they're going to be judged by how they play in the big games when they get, USC comes to town and those ones, can they beat them? Can they play, USC's defense has not been great, so I'm expecting a shootout in that game. But, I think some of those guys that got off to a hot start for Notre Dame are kind of coming back to earth a little bit. But I think you're right. Estime, the running back, is by far, I think, the top guy as far as I can see Devy-wise on this team.
Yeah, they had a big performance by their tight end too, Holden Stays, sophomore. Played a little bit last year, but he had a really big game over the weekend. I think he even had over 100 yards if I'm not mistaken. But
he had 4 for 115 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. He had a big game. And those Notre Dame tight ends always seem to get good draft capital. So it's just kind of picking out the right guy. Coming into the season, was it Raritan? Was it Evans? Is it Stays now? Which one are you really going for? And do they stick with one of them? Because if they do, then that guy could end up really having good draft capital whenever he enters the NFL.
Yeah,
what do you got to see?
I'm just on the same line. I loved Hartman when he was at Wake Forest. That was a huge reason why I was a big fan of A.T. Perry. Just a good quarterback, but I don't really see anything special in him. I think he's just a college quarterback, if you will, definitely for your CFF leagues. But beyond that, I don't think that's much there. Sorry about that. My ads keep playing there. But I think he's just your average quarterback. He knows how to win the games. He knows how to manage it, but it's not at an NFL level, an NFL caliber. Estime is looking great. He's getting your RB1 stats for your running backs in the NFL. He's 14.3 touches per game, 8 yards per carry. He's looking phenomenal, and he's looking like the focal piece. And it's nice to see that Notre Dame run game come back from them. You don't have the stud wide receiver to me, and I think that's just more so on Sam Hartman, not necessarily on the wide receivers. He's not a quarterback that's going to make you look good. He's going to get you the ball. He's going to make sure just the play gets happen, but he's not going to make a wide receiver look good. And unfortunately, there's not really any wide receivers on the team that are ones to make the quarterback look great. And that's why it's just kind of an average passing game for you. NC State, with them and like in basketball, they're always that team where it's like you never know what to think of them. Are they going to be good? Are you not? When you're out of them, they start winning. When you're in on them, they start losing. So I think they just still have to continue to get it together. They continue to have to work at it, and they're going to get maybe an upset this year, but that may be their only game that they win. They don't look great all around. It looks like they're struggling. Notre Dame came out and demolished them. So yeah, Estime is the guy you want here. I'm stashing him where I can on Devy's or C2Cs. But other than that, there's nothing really exciting here for me.
Yeah, as far as NC State goes, I really liked what I saw from Juice Farine, their freshman tight end. He had a pretty good game. Outside of that, it's probably Brennan Armstrong's issue, but their wide receivers don't really do much. I know Andy's a big fan of Kevin Concepcion there, and I actually like DJ Collins. I think he's got good size. You know, he's the transfer from Clemson. He's got good size. He was fairly involved on Saturday after not being involved in their first game at all. Kind of the same with Rosner, their transfer from Rice. Those guys kind of got a little bit more involved, and I would actually look for them to get more and more involved as the season goes on. What do you got, Andy?
Yeah, for NC State, Brennan Armstrong, he's got no confidence. He's lost it, and there's watching that game. There's no coming back. I think they have to turn to MJ Morris. MJ Morris played well last year. I think he has the juice. I mean, it's going to be his time. With Brennan Armstrong, this is his last year. You're not going anywhere with him. He's proven that he's not the guy. You got to let MJ Morris, got to let him grow, see what you have there, and let Juice Farine grow. Let Kevin Concepcion grow. He leads a team in catches with, I think he has 9 that leads a team, but he's averaging 6 yards per catch. So it's all short passes because Brandon Armstrong doesn't have the confidence to throw it deep. He's not trusting his reads. He's just done. They have to turn to MJ Morris.
I actually agree with that. MJ Morris looked good whenever he played last year. Came in whenever Devin Leary got hurt, and he looked really good. He looked like he could lead an offense, and I was actually surprised when they brought in Brennan Armstrong. I thought that MJ Morris could have taken off this year if they had just handed the reins over to him. All right, got a couple players that we all want to talk about here. The first one that I'm wanting to discuss, Kyle McCord and his receivers there at the Ohio State University. Kyle McCord looked a lot better on Saturday. Now I know it's against Youngstown State, so again, let's take it with a little bit of grain of salt there. But Marvin Harrison Jr. Whatever low ball offer you guys sent after last weekend, I can promise you, if anybody accepted them, they are kicking themselves now. He's back. I don't think he ever really went anywhere, to be honest with you. Still my wide receiver 1. Still the number 2 overall guy in my mind as far as super flex rankings go. Caleb Williams 1, Marvin Harrison's number 2. Emeka Egbuka had a big game. He's my number 2 receiver. Again, Youngstown State. We'll see where it continues to go. Kyle McCord was actually named the starter moving forward for the rest of the season by Ryan Day. So let's give them room to kind of improve that chemistry a little bit. I think Saturday was a very good first step for that. You guys,
Marvin. He's just a stud. Deep catches, long catches. He just outruns everybody. He's just a beast. McCord, like you said, looked better. I thought Devin Brown was going to push him a little bit more, but man, he did not look good at all in the first 2 games. I was a little surprised by that because I know some people out there in the Devy community just absolutely love Devin Brown, and they thought he should be the guy hands down. I heard people talking about they thought he was going to be in the Heisman race this year. So it was a little premature, but I think going forward, McCord's the guy, for this year. I think that hopefully that settles things out for Ohio State and everything around that with Marvin. But, they're going to be Ohio State. They're going to put up points. They're going to score. They're going to be, they'll be in the mix because they always are. They just needed a Youngstown State to get straight and get right and get ready to go. And I think they probably are now.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that was just a wake up call game, just saying, okay, we're here. It's nothing like that. You know, it wasn't. He needed this game. He needed this kind of bridge game to get him to the rest of the schedule because he was already on the hot seat. You know, you have star caliber wide receivers and they looked horrible in game one. You know, so they definitely just need this game. The worry here is Travion Henderson. You know, is he sliding down your boards? You know, the passing game was there. Colin McCord looked great, but we expected that. We also want to see more of Travion Henderson, and he's not looking like one of the top RBs, man. Him and Braylon, you know, kind of just coming off, and it's hard. And Raheem's hurt as well. So did these top three RBs going into it? It's like, wait, hold on, maybe they're not. What do we have to do here? I mean, I'm concerned about that now. You know, I think Colin McCord's gonna look great, and I think it's just because, hey, if you mess up, Devin Brown's here, but now I want to see this running game. I want to see Travion be a little bit more explosive. I want to see him hit the holes a little bit faster. I'm missing that, you know, as one of my RBs going in, a target for me, you know, coming up next year's draft. And now I'm like, wait, hold on. Now I need to dig deeper because I don't even know if he's going to be there.
Well, as far as Travion Henderson goes, let me see how do I say this? I think he is still the RB2/3 in this draft class. I don't think that he is going to get the volume you want to see out of him, mainly because you do have Mayan Williams, you do have Chip Trainum, you do have Dallin Hayden, who for some reason is completely buried. So I don't think you're going to see the volume you want to see out of Travion Henderson in order to be comfortable with seeing if he's back from that injury or not. I think we're going to have to wait and see more towards the end of the year. I think he may start to get utilized a little bit more towards, you know, especially, you know, going to that Michigan game. They're going to need put their best foot forward. I think that is when you're really going to see somebody like Travion Henderson. And then obviously going into if they don't make the playoff, he'll probably opt out. So you won't see him. So if they don't make a playoff game, you're going to see him not playing the bowl game. So then you're looking at, well, what do we see leading up to the draft? You know, what do we see in the combine? What do we see in the pro day? How explosive is he there? How does he test? So he is going to be kind of frustrating for the rest of the season for you, mainly because, again, I don't think you're going to see the volume, and I don't think you're going to really understand where he falls as far as the pecking order with the running backs in this draft class. Because, like you said, you do have Braylon Allen, you do have Rocket Sanders, you do have Donovan Edwards. I know Andy's not a fan, but you do have Will Shipley. You know, Blake Corum is another one. Trey Benson. So you're going to have 6-7 running backs that you're able to say, well, one's better than the other, or he's not as good as this guy. And Travion's going to continue to have those question marks just because of the way Ryan Day plays his guys.
I currently have Travion at RB5 for the class. My main concern and my main issue ever since I watched his film in high school is I think the NFL is going to view him as a change of pace back, more of a third down type of a back. I don't believe they'll view him as like a first or second down type of back. I don't think he can take a beating and take a pounding. He is someone when I watch him run, he looks for a way out. He looks to not get hit. He doesn't want to punish someone. He will look to avoid that. And so for me, I view him as just that third down, third and short, swing pass kind of a back because he has good hands. They used him as that his freshman year, and they're kind of using him that way. But that's always been my main concern with him, and I definitely have him lower than the consensus. But yeah, I have him as RB5 for the class.
I got you. Which I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like I said, I've got him in that 2 to 3 range. But again, you can make an argument for Donovan Edwards. You can make your argument for Rocket Sanders. Travion Henderson, Trey Benson. You can make an argument for any of those guys to be that 1 through 5. Braylon Allen. To be that 1 through 5 type of guy. Just depending on your personal bias, on your personal feelings on what you would want out of a running back if you were to draft him onto your fantasy football team, or even personal bias on who you want your favorite NFL team to draft. Like my guy is Braylon Allen. I would love for the Cowboys to take him. I think that would be a perfect fit. You pair him up. Especially if they don't want to sign Tony Pollard long, for a long-term deal.
Do you think so? Do you think if Malusi keeps showing out that it's gonna hurt him as well?
I don't. I mean, Braylon Allen's 19 years old. He's his third. He's a young guy. This is his third year in college. So, and he has killed it his first 2 years. So I don't see why this would be any different. Malusi just happens to be healthy, which he wasn't last year. So Malusi is going to eat into his volume, sure. But we've seen that Braylon Allen is able to handle volume. He's able to handle taking the punishment. And now you're able to see where he's able to handle pass catching duties out of the backfield, which we didn't see the first couple seasons. So in my opinion, Braylon Allen is the RB1.
Yeah, Braylon Allen's 19. He's going to be draft eligible. Ruben Owens, a true freshman, he's 20. So that right there. As far as Braylon Allen, 15 catches in the first 2 games. He hasn't done anything with them, but at least he can show you that he can at least catch it. So that's good. Yeah.
And that whole dairy raid system or whatever that they're wanting to call it is not very good. They really need to go back. They really need to go back to the ground and pound with Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi.
Yeah, it's been ugly so far in Wisconsin. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. The next guy I was wanting to talk about, Samuel Brown, wide receiver out of Houston. That guy, 6'2", good size. Everybody wants to focus on Matthew Golden down there. I think Samuel Brown's a better prospect. Takes the top off. Good runner, runs good routes, good hands, going to burn you deep. I think he's a better NFL prospect than what his teammate Matthew Golden is. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for me right now, I agree with you. I mean, he's been the man for Houston. He's been their best wide receiver by far, and he's got the size and speed. He keeps it up, keeps going with what he's doing. I mean, the QB play has not been phenomenal, and he's still had really good stats and really played well. So he's definitely a guy that I didn't have, on my radar much at all, and he's got me paying attention now after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think he's a sleeper guy where he might be a guy that sneaks into your third round or something like that. But I mean, I don't think he's necessarily going to rise anything like crazy. But definitely a wide receiver to watch, and I wouldn't draft him in Devy or anything like that. But your C2Cs, he's a good play for you.
What I really liked about from his first year to this year is his maturity level. Last year, you saw him get in fights with teammates. He got into fights with, other defenders. He was suspended, So he did a lot of bonehead things, and you love to see that progression because he's a lot more mature, and you see that trust that's on the field now. And he's someone that I do have a lot of C2Cs in. I always took him late, and the talent was always there. It was a matter of, the things between the ears, if he would ever get that figured out. And it seems like he has. So that's really good.
Oh yeah. Andy, you had a couple guys you were wanting to talk about here. First one, Devin Neal. Go and tell us about him.
Yeah, he's my Devy riser. For most people, I've had him as my RB4 for the class for some time now. I'm a real fan of his. He has good size. He's 5'11", 210. He's got good burst. He's physical. He's got good contact balance as well. He's a good north-south runner. What I like is that he's really efficient every time he touches the ball. And he's also a good pass protector, which the NFL looks for and likes. He has soft hands. So when you watch him play, he just cradles it in, gets it in, snags it, whatever he has to do just to get it, and then he makes plays afterwards. So I think he profiles as a true 3-down back. And so I think he's someone that the NFL is going to love at the next level, and I really love his game.
Oh yeah, he's got good burst. Like you said, he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. My issue was last season prior to Henshaw getting hurt. He wasn't really just the outright guy. He took over that mantle obviously after Henshaw was injured. Now that Henshaw is back, I really want to see him continue to be the dominant force in that backfield. All right. Who else were you wanting to talk about there, Andy?
This next guy is my Devy dark horse. I kind of went into the weeds and I just dug into this guy. He is Xavier Legette for South Carolina. He is a 6'3", 227-pound with an in-game speed of 21 miles an hour. When I was digging into him, he actually in an interview this fall in the fall camp, he ran one-on-one in a dash with Nicholas Harbor, who has a verified 10.20 100-meter dash. And it came out, he says he beat Nicholas Harbor, and Nicholas Harbor was like, there's no tape of it. There's no tape of it. So he has legit speed. And he's a senior that hasn't put up any production until this year. And so I wanted to kind of do a deep dive on him as to why all of a sudden he just came up and just blown up this year. He's a 4-star kid when he came into the class of 2019. He was the 17th ranked athlete. Now, when he came into South Carolina, he was buried. They had a deep receiving core, but he still found a way to get on the field. He had 9 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. He was looking to build upon that in the offseason, and then he just had nagging injuries, and it only caused him to play 6 games as a sophomore. Then in 2021, he had more injuries, and then he was interviewed during the fall camp of 2021, and he was quoted as saying that he's only 90% recovered from his surgery that he had in the spring. In the middle of the season, he then had a motorcycle accident. So he's just been wrecked with injuries here and there. And then it looks like towards the end of the season, he kind of picked it up. And then it looks like this past offseason, he trained with Deebo Samuels. And what I was reading and figuring everything out, it took Deebo training and working with him for him to figure out how to use his body as an asset and to pretty much play bully ball. So with that training, it's pretty much everything's clicked for him. And in the first couple of games this year, he's blown up. I think he's someone that can make a rise into a late day 2, early day 3. He also plays special teams. He's also a gunner. So he also does all these little things that teams love for a late day 2, early day 3 kind of a guy. And I think he has every chance to be a Devy dark horse.
Yeah, he's been really productive with Juice Wells out so far this year. Spencer Strider has really looked towards Leggett. And he's put up some really big numbers so far this year. I'd be interested to see if that continues when Wells comes back, or if that kind of falls off a little bit. SC, you got a couple things you were wanting to talk about too.
Yeah, one being the running back from Cincinnati, Corey Kiner, just looks phenomenal. He reminds me of what Jerome Ford was. Just a big body back that's explosive. He has both games. He has a run over 50 yards. You know, he's looking phenomenal. He's looking like he can be the guy at that next level. He has some nice size, and maybe it's the game scripts just falling in his direction, but he has some vision. He knows how to get out. So what I really like, and it again reminds me of Jerome Ford, who at that time I believe was like my RB6 of the class. You know, so definitely someone I'm keeping my eye on this year just to see if he keeps this up in that same type of production. Because right now he's averaging 7.8 yards per carry, just looking like a true running back that I love when I'm looking at them for me.
Yeah, Corey Kiner was one of those kind of post type guys for, coming into this season. You know, last year he got a lot of he got a lot of preseason love last year, transferring in out of LSU over to Cincinnati, and then didn't really do a whole lot. But this year, I saw him as one of those post type guys that I was kind of wanting to grab in CFF and C2C leagues, because a lot of people dropped him. So I was able to go grab him in a lot of supplementals late, and he's been really productive this year. I'm kind of interested to see where that goes as well.
And then my other guys were the Oregon running backs. You know, those were guys I was looking to see this week, just to see if they were still going to separate the ball as they did last week. You know, where everyone got involved. Dante Dawa, the freshman there, didn't get any carries this game, but you did see Bucky Irving get his score in there. But I think it's more back down to earth, where last week it was just like, hey, we could run the ball all over these guys. Let's make it happen. Where this week it's like, okay, we're in Oregon. Let's pass the ball. This is how we're doing it. And, but they still look good. Don't get me wrong. They still look like a nice running team. But, okay, it's a pass friendly. You know, they're going to trust and give Bo Nix the ball. They want him to lead it down the field. They're not going to run it all the way through with their running backs.
Well, they have really a three-headed monster there at running back with Bucky Irving, with Jordan James, and Noah Whittington was back this past weekend also. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of Dante Dowdle moving forward for the rest of the season, other than maybe in certain spots. Whenever you have three really productive running backs in front of the freshmen, those are the guys that they're probably going to roll with. But it's like you said, Bo Nix just being able to sling the ball out there to, Tez Johnson and obviously Troy Franklin and, Ferguson, the tight end's not bad. Nix is going to be a Heisman candidate, so I think that they're really going to try to push for that.
The Pac-12 is really about to get fun. We've talked about how it's about to really disband. So all these games, I feel every team almost is playing like this is our last year. This is our last year to prove we're better than you, right? So it's just a fun, exciting time to watch every team in the Pac-12 because they're playing for it all.
Right. JT, do you got anybody you want to talk about tonight?
Who was I? That's like we were talking about some of the guys that that I kind of had my eye on. The one guy a game that a lot of people didn't necessarily watch was Mississippi State, Arizona. But Ted McMillan, their QB has not played great. Delora, he threw 4 picks in that game against Mississippi State. It was kind of ugly, but Ted McMillan is looking good, man. He's got the size, he's got the ability, 6'5", 210. He looked great. Now, he had 8 catches, 161 and a touchdown, caught a 55-yarder. He's a guy that I just keep every time I get a chance to watch him. I've been watching him because he just feels like he's moving up for me. I just like him more every time I see him play. Like I said, I love the size. I think if he continues, to work out, continues to get that body control, I just think he's a guy that can really cause problems for a lot of people. And I think the NFL is going to just absolutely love his size. So he's the guy that's a Devy riser for me. He's just not going to get a lot of national attention because Arizona's no good. They just aren't, so in his QB play is I thought would hopefully be a little bit better, but it hasn't. As Cowings, some people are talking about him all season. He's not done much at all there so far for Arizona. But I really like McMillan. He's the guy that I'm definitely going to just keep my eyes on because he feels like a guy who could really jump in Devy circles next year. If he continues to have a really good season this year, and people say, "Hey, if his quarterback play gets better, man, where could he be at?" He just feels like one of those guys that could really jump up lists.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're looking at the 25 draft eligible wide receivers there, and you're talking Evan Stewart, Luther Burden, Antonio Williams, Barry Brown, Tet McMillan. I mean, those are 5 really, really solid guys right there. And with Tet, you look at him, and then you look at Jacob Cowing, and Tet McMillan really, really stands out as the NFL caliber guy there. I know Cowing was, everybody was kind of in love with him, especially last year. He really faded towards the end of the year. Dorian Singer was their number 1 wide receiver. He obviously transferred out to Southern Cal, but everybody was expecting it to be Cowing, and then it just wasn't. And now this year, kind of everybody the same way. Everybody was expecting it to be Cowing, and it's Tet McMillan. He has, like you said, he's got the size, he's got the route running ability, he's got the speed, and you just look at those 2 guys, and Tet is just different. He just jumps off the page at you.
He's a better A.T. Perry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that comparison.
Yeah. You got anybody else, or are we gonna try to cut it out tonight?
I think we're right at that hour mark. We're probably pretty good.
All right. That sounds good to me. Guys, go ahead and tell us where we're able to find you, and tell everybody what it is you're working on.
Yeah, find me at JT Orange on X. Always on there doing stuff, putting out content, tweets, whatever. IDP stuff, find me on Fan Tracks every Wednesday, my IDP article and my rankings on DLF for IDP. And then if you're into gambling, that type of thing, I put out a show on the Dynasty Pros football channel every week on the Stew with JT Brew. I put out a college and a football show, and I will also be doing, some reviews and stuff like that. Always check out my stuff. Usually coming out Wednesdays and Thursdays on the Dynasty Pros channel. And then I'm here every Tuesday with you guys talking up college football and Devy, some of my favorite things to do.
Very nice. You can find me on X at the PPR show, posting my weekly learnings for the CFF, running back, quarterback, wide receiver, and IDP. IDP is coming out on Wednesday. And then you can find me on RPO, have an IDP start sit article coming out there soon for the NFL. And of course, every Tuesday here, Tuesday, Thursday for y'all doing the recap and the preview.
And you can find me at Andy_Fam1, doing 3 articles a week. Monday will be the recap with stock up, stock down, and names to watch. Middle of the week, I'll do a Devy Digest player profile. And then on Thursdays, we'll preview the games ahead in an article as well as on here.
Awesome. Guys, we'll be back Thursday night, 9:15. We'll be doing a week 3 preview. We're going to pick out some games, talk about those. We're going to pick out some players to watch, talk about them. We really appreciate you tuning in tonight. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you want to know when we go live, hit the notification bell. Also, leave comments, find us on Twitter, holler at us. We enjoy interacting. But until Thursday, y'all have a good night.